Hi.
How many kids do you have? Just 2 or 3?
And Diamond and Mommy and Daddy.
How many kids? How many kids do I have?
20.
20?
Yeah.
Whoa.
You might not be far off.
Communists exploit people and they become billionaires while the poorest of the poor live in slums. So it's kind of, even if you have the best intentions with your utopia society in your head, it's going to be, the strong are going to conquer the weak. So do you think people would really have a problem with helping these poor people if they knew somehow it was coming from the wealthiest of the wealthy?
Why not me?
My soul is breaking free. You awaken me, stolen my time to move on. But now I can see seizing destiny. Welcome to my evolution.
Right?
2.
They are done room.
Who's the dumbest guy in the room?
You.
Oh. Say bye.
Bye.
Good job, baby girl.
All right. Welcome to the dumbest guy in the room. Welcome back. Today we got another book review coming up. This book was picked by Edward Carroll, or we should say Edward Carroll's better half. It is called The Broken Ladder, How Inequality Affects the Way We Think, Live, and Die by Keith Payne. I thought that, I'll tell you, I had a definite bias going into it, where I didn't think I would agree with a lot of what he was talking about. Just that word inequality always gets me. And that's definitely a bias that I have, that I do acknowledge when I hear that word. It definitely exists. It's definitely a real thing. Now, whether or not it's good, bad, evil, good, or whatever it may be, whatever inequality means, that's up to perception. And I guess in this guy's case, his studies and stuff like that. So since you picked Ed, I'm going to let you start. What about the book? What do you want to start with The Broken Ladder?
So I knew a lot about the inequalities, so my wife's a nurse, and through nursing school they teach you about the inequality, especially between races, that during childbirth, statistically Black women die more during childbirth than white women, or pretty much any other race, whether it's they don't receive the appropriate care, or if they're in pain but the doctors aren't acknowledging it because oh, it's a Black woman, she's probably just drug seeking type of shit, and it goes through doctors' minds, it goes through a lot of people's minds. So it was an interesting read. A lot of I'm big on statistics. I thought it was I don't know if any of you got the Audible, but it comes with the PDFs of all the statistics and charts and stuff that he goes throughout the book. And then I remember, I don't want to put the institute that you worked at out there if you don't want
Me?
to, but yes, you.
Yeah, go ahead, put them out there, dude.
I can't even remember which one it was, but
It was the last one. Fulton Bank.
Fulton, yes. About the credit cards, and I remember you telling me that, and I was yo, that is so fucked up. It's so.
Well, Eddie, I don't know what you're talking about, so can you explain for me?
Sure, yeah. So, actually, I'm gonna let Bill kind of explain the exact nature of how this bank kind of preyed on Black people and people with shitty credit to kind of get the people that worked at the bank to get them to get credit cards.
So it's not necessarily how they preyed on Black people in general. It's how they treated just people, right? So like the way they would treat people in general is when you go to a bank, man, first of all, bankers suck. All right, that's the number one rule. Bankers suck. I was a banker for a long time. I sucked for a long time. It wasn't until I started to become okay with myself and actually care about other people and their money, and like just watching people grow financially, even if it's not making more money or anything, it's just more of a confidence thing with your money, right? It's not always about how much money you have. And that's where I get confused with all this inequity stuff, because it's like, it's not necessarily how much money you have. It's not necessarily how much of anything you have. It's how confident you are in what you're doing and what you love and what you're passionate about. And sometimes that's the hardest part to find, right? So what the banks would do, man, which is, it's a shame because I think all banks do it, but I'll just specifically talk about like ones that I've worked at. They use this term financial wellness as their key objective, right? This financial wellness. We want everybody to be financially well. We want everybody to thrive financially. So when I was at Key Bank, and even TrueMark was, pretty good. Key Bank was okay. But it depends on the person you're going to sit down with, because I have goals I got to hit, right? So I got to sell this many credit cards. My branch has got to sell this much personal loans, this many investments, da, 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 da. And what happens, dude, is like the people who are uneducated in financial products, especially when it comes to debt, when they get approved for something, they're not using it like a rich person would use that, right? Like debt is good for the rich. They use it the right way. When a poor person gets a hold of a credit card, we spend it. We think it's free money. $20 payment if I use all $1,000 of this? Okay. Well, you're making that $20 payment forever. And they would just push it and push it and push it. And like Wells Fargo, I think that's what they got in trouble for. They were just giving them to people and they didn't even know they had them.
Yeah.
But for me, man, it's all about education, and not necessarily education as to what I know and how I view the world. It's getting to know you and how you view the world and what you're passionate in, and then trying to create a plan to better you that aligns with your values and your passions. And that the problem is in banking, you can't do that with the first person, because now you only got your perspective and that person's perspective. So it takes conversations with hundreds and hundreds of people to be able to see hundreds and hundreds of perspectives, so that when the next guy comes in, even though it's a brand new perspective, there's bits and pieces of what he values and things like that that you can pull from everyone else that you've been able to have a conversation with, right? So we go to these training classes and you do these things and you learn, but you're learning from a ideology of a group think where this is for everybody and this is what this does. And it's like, you have to learn for yourself that that's not the case, right? Like I use things differently than Mike uses things, than you use things. And if you never sat down with somebody to understand why you do those things and why you need to do them, how are you going to get help, right? You can listen to Dave Ramsey all you want. Have fun. That's not going to make you more confident. That's just you following this thing that Dave Ramsey says that you need to do. Does he have good tips? I think he has some great tips. Does it work for everybody? No. Not everybody cares about money, right? Not everybody cares about college. Not everybody cares about vacation. Not everybody cares about podcasts. Not everybody cares about conversation. Not everybody cares about politics. But you got to figure out where that is. And that's why I love this podcast, why I like doing these book things, because I'm talking, we get to talk, we get to see the perspective of an author, and hopefully have a lot more guests on coming up soon. But with what you're saying, Ed, with the bank, it's literally people that don't know how to use credit cards, giving credit cards to people that don't know how to use credit cards just to hit a goal,
But then they give you like didn't they give you like a bonus, like a kickback for like,
Yeah, you get paid when you hit things.
well, like
When
I'm
you
saying,
hit
like
goals.
didn't you say like they would give you like a bonus for like if like you gave like credit card to like a black person.
No, dude. Definitely didn't say that.
Wink, wink.
No, I'd never said that, dude.
Or like
I
it was
would
like,
never. So this is what I know what you're talking about, Ed.
you know what I'm
This is
talking
what-
about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So anything Eddie just said, you can ignore because we were not giving financial products to black people and saying, here's extra money to the employees. What they did was and this was right after the Black Lives Matter stuff, they incorporated a referral program that if you referred a black person to work
That's
there,
what it was.
and not a black person, a person of color, so any I don't know how they said it, but they basically had a list of all of these nationalities, these origins and skin tones, and left out white male. Like that's basically what it was. They just tried to list everything possible besides white male. And the best part about it is it was done by a white male in a company that's all white. And what happened was they would give you extra money if they got the job, right? They were still hiring based on qualifications, but if they get the excuse me, if they get the job, you get an extra $500. So if I referred Mike, I would give 500. If I referred a black person, I would get 1,000. Okay, so I actually did refer a black woman to work there, and she got the job. And then this all rolled out. So on a call with like the main guy, I was like with the CEO or whoever run all the branches, and he's saying this, and his words were, "We tend to be friends with people that look like us. So we want to get out and get referrals from people that don't look like us." So I said, "No, I'm sorry, but your friends might look like you, but that's your perspective of life when you're looking at your friends and when you're looking at your friends' friends, but you have no idea who I am. None of my friends all of my friends are from all different types of nationalities. Man, I prefer to talk to people from, like I had this dude, his name was Marwan, an Egyptian. And this dude was the man because I never met an Egyptian. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world because when you think Egyptian, you're thinking fucking mummies and, old time Egyptians. I never met an Egyptian. And that was my, lack of perspective. But getting to know him, man, it's like I can speak a couple words in Arabic because, and I don't know, I just thought, but anyway, I think that society pushes that narrative on us. So with what you're saying about the hospitals and stuff, I don't know those statistics, and so I can't really get into it. I have heard that before. I personally don't like to look at it from that viewpoint. Not because it's not true, not because it's not true in everybody, just because it's not good.
Right.
It's not, I don't think that's a good perspective to have, that people do that, because, and if you read in the book, he has one study that says that they gave them a task, right? And they had to go through this screen, and it would show a face, which would be either black male or white male, and then a tool or a gun. And the tool would be like a wrench or something like that. And it was timed. So you had to click and say a face, then the tool or gun, and click tool or gun. And at the end of it, he said that there was a bias where they would say gun after more of the photos of a black person than they would of a white person. But the biggest statistic that he doesn't talk about is that it went through the roof and went higher after he told them, pay attention to your bias.
Yeah.
He told them, pay attention to your bias, and now they're getting it worse, which means telling people they have biases is giving them a bias. I think that's that was one of the biggest takeaways for me from the book, was that he just kind of blew past that fact. when you tell people about their bias, they tend to be more biased.
A
What?
lot. I mean, I struggled early on in this book because I felt like he was biased to get his point of view across with like Bill Gates suggested the book How to Lie with Statistics, and it's a great book. Maybe we'll read it together, but it teaches you how to use statistics to get your own biases through to other people, and
Yes.
that's what I felt like he did. Like
Isn't that what we all do
I mean, you
to an
yeah,
extent?
yes, but you really you shouldn't.
But that's why, like Eddie said, he likes statistics. I don't like statistics because I think you can use statistics and flip them
Well,
to its opposite, no matter what.
Academia has a huge bias when they run their tests and their studies because first of all, who's paying for it? What are their theses before they're running the study? What are they looking for? And how are they trying to get a fair idea of the population in the study? Like how are they making sure there is no bias leaning to skew it towards their thesis is my thing. So I mean, without digging into every single one of these studies, it's just like I felt like he was super biased, he was super opinionated, and some of his things just didn't hold up. Like he talked about going to a rich friend's house, and the rich friend always had a schedule for all of the activities that he wanted to do, and it shocked him. And how he grew up
Right.
was totally opposite of that. And I'm thinking, listen, anybody that is poor that has a rich friend, before you ever get to that rich friend's house, you're thinking about all the cool things you're going to want to do at this rich kid's house. So you're pre-planning all this stuff in your own head. So for him to say that he just wanted to show
Caprell.
and not do anything, like everybody has rich friends. Well, I can't say everybody, but if you're poor and you have rich friends, you got an itinerary in your head. Now, if you're going to do it, it's not going to happen. I mean, some things may not happen, but every poor kid has a bunch of things that even the rich kids don't think are that cool, but you're going to want to do all this stuff once you get to that rich kid's house. So I think some of his ideas are kind of skewed. Like
Not even that, dude. He doesn't remember these. These are like, you can't remember that far back. There's no way. So
Yeah.
like these are memories of him trying to convince himself. And maybe he did, dude. Maybe I'm wrong. But if I go back to my childhood was so wrong up here, dude. I downloaded, I transferred VHS tapes, family videos to a computer. I was like, I don't remember being that happy. I was not that happy, dude. Like, I'm so happy. I'm playing with my family, and I'm like, that's not real. That's not true. I don't remember that. I remember being sad all the time. I remember being like stuck in my shell. I don't remember that stuff. I would never be confident saying that when I was in a lunch line, that's when I realized I was poor. No, that's you saying, oh man, you just realized that happened, and you're going back and saying that.
I don't know. That is a moment that you probably would remember. Like that's like it's kind
correct.
of
But did it say I'm poor? In that moment, do you say I'm poor?
Or you're different? I'm different.
I'm different, right? I'm different. So now you're noticing differences. And then as you get older,
you realize
you can look back and say, right, just like anything else in life, when things happen, bad things or good things, we seem to like kind of zone out and be like, why is this happening? Or yay, this is happening. And then like, it could be years later, it could be days later, but you can look back and be like this right now, this moment's why that happened.
Well, you can see how
and you can start seeing things.
You can see how he's trying to distance himself from his upbringing because he brings up being in the field where the religious teacher is telling him to close his eyes and think, and then he hears the Bible verse in his head, and then he really believes it, and then he manages to convince himself that you can hear anything from rutabaga to some other crazy words if you're just focusing on that. So he tries to distance himself because he transitioned from this poor upbringing to academia and being a professor and going to UNC. I'm guessing that's where he went. He doesn't have a Wikipedia, but he talks about Chapel Hill and whatnot. So he's trying to distance himself that where he's now is better than this religious, what is it, Alabama, where he's from, or something like that, upbringing where there's poor.
Kentucky, I think.
Kentucky, yeah. So, and then he bashes his brother a little bit, and he bashes some other family members as being a little different. And it's kind of like he's trying to justify that where he is now is better because of what he's gone through than where, say, his brother or his family is stuck in Kentucky where he grew up. So I don't know. I mean, there were some things that I definitely agreed with, and then some other things that I'm just like, I think that's more of an opinion than he's claiming as a fact.
Most of it is. I want to back up. I want to back up here because the book is about inequality. So I think it's important that we define inequality, right? That what is inequality? Because in the book, the way that he starts out talking about it is how we came up with what poverty is, and he talks about like how you measure it through material things? Can you measure it poverty through how much money you make? And then he narrowed it down to, which I didn't know, this was something I learned, that our poverty and how much money we're given is based on the cost of food. So it's like 1/3 of food. I didn't look this up. This is his words. I did not look this up to see if this is correct. I don't know if you know, but he says the money that they're giving is, or poverty line is 1/3 of what food cost is. And then he starts getting into, well, now we should have to reevaluate that because we have more things. And now like 90% of people, I don't know if that percentage is correct, but something around that, have a TV, have a radio, have a car, have the internet, have electric, have all of these things. So he's like, so the poorest people have these things. So, we need to recalculate that because now they can only spend X on the food and the rest is going to these things. And it's like, well, isn't that kind of, in my opinion, inequality could be broken down into two different categories. You can have inequality of outcome, and you can have inequality of opportunity, right? So what he gets at, in my opinion, is more of inequality, and he looks at it from a standpoint of money, and how much money people have to say whether or not they're equal or not. But then he also does the inequality of outcome, where people should be getting money equally, no matter what they're doing, or any of that should be equal, and that the rich should be giving to the poor, which I do agree with taxes. I do agree with state, I do agree with, a lot of that stuff because, unfortunately people are not as well off. I don't care if they're lazy or any of that. I really don't care. I am more than happy to pay my share to help out people no matter where they are, right? I'm just not giving everything. I can't because I have to live. If I could give everything, I would, but I can't because I have to live too. So in my opinion, inequality is being looked at from a perspective of we need to give everybody the same things and they need the same outcome. And if Kristen, my 4'11", 99-pound wife wants to be a firefighter, she should get it because she deserves it. But like, she would never be able to carry me out of a burning home. So that makes no sense. Like, I wouldn't want her to come and get me. So with that being said, I just don't think equality of outcome is ever going to happen. It sounds great, but we're an imperfect world trying to make it perfect, and it's never going to work. So, Ed, when you're looking at inequality, how do you look at what inequality is before we get deeper into it?
Me personally, I've seen it when I first started working at my old job, I was making more than my wife was at the same company, and she already had 4 or 5 years invested into the company, was already working there for that long. I come strong and I'm right out the gate, I'm making more money than she is. And she was a little pissed off because for some reason women make make less than men do. And so then of course she went back to school, became a nurse. Now she's making almost double what I'm making. So, but like if I went to school, became a nurse, even though she already has a couple years invested into it, I guarantee if I became a nurse right now, I'd be making more money than she is.
So do you think that inequality is something that is systematically already placed in and
Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
Yeah, so when I read the title of this book, I thought he was going to go into the more historic reasons for the inequality between races specifically. And he dabbled in it, but he really didn't get into how systemic the inequality is in our country. Like the government literally set up, I think it was called the Fair Housing Act in like the 1960s, when people were fleeing from the cities and buying suburban homes. They literally put into place they made maps and said like, so only so many black families can buy houses in this area because this is going to be a white neighborhood. And they segregated neighborhoods according to white and black. And they pretty much kept black people in the cities and in the slums, and generations later, black people do tend to have a learned helplessness because they've seen all their generations of families, their friends, their cousins. The only successful people may be a drug dealer or something like that. They see the fast money. And that's because that's the opportunity that they see in front of them. They have examples of people that they know succeeding down that path. They don't have many good examples of people going down a traditional like a real estate agent or a banker or some kind of college degree and then get like a doctor or a lawyer. They see the people from their neighborhood are successful doing certain things. And the reason they're still in that neighborhood is because systemically they've been held back by policies put in place by our own damn government. So I thought he'd go deeper into things like that, and he really didn't. And that's when I started to get a little suspect of where he was coming from. Like he dabbled in the race issue, but didn't really dig deep into it. So I think inequality definitely exists. And if it's male versus female, or if it's black versus white, or even minorities versus white, it exists. And I think it really does start with changing some policies to help minorities out. But I'm not smart enough to come up with something that's going to succeed. And I don't think that governments really care. I think they gaslight. I don't think the government really cares. I think they want to keep the bottom where it is. And they know there needs to be a bottom, but they don't want to fix who's there right now because, I mean, it's a minority. I mean, they keep the minority down where manageable. I don't think they put in good policies because they don't want it to change, or at least right now they don't. So that's
I don't think they can implement anything else to help minorities or us or really a lot of people. I think they need to start taking away some of the things that they do. But you're right. I don't have the solutions, right? Like I don't know how you solve that.
And I thought he would bring up some solutions, and he really
didn't.
It's like what the?
But he kind of got into universal income. He kind of got into universal healthcare. He kind of got into things like that.
He scoffed at his student that said, "Isn't that socialism?" Yeah, it's fucking
correct.
Socialism. Like
That's what I mean. And then he came back and said, "Well, it's not socialism.
There's nothing wrong with it being socialism, except that this is America and people have a negative connotation to
view of it."
But if you're gonna propose something that's socialism, call a spade.
Just call it what it is, right?
That's what it is. Like the dude's he's in denial. we have a lot of socialist qualities about our government, but you just got to call it out for what it is.
Yeah, and that's the only way you can ever grow from that. So, Mike, I was looking it up with what you were talking about. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 is what started to stop the redlining.
Yeah.
So the redlining was where they were putting black people in certain areas to make sure that they remain poor, right? And they're definitely still feeling, effects
because they're
from
still
that,
in those neighborhoods.
right?
They're still
Yeah,
there.
they're still there.
Yeah.
And they're still there because that's all they know, right? But it's not just them. There are white people mixed in there. And I don't like to bring up the fact of like white people are bad. Like I don't like doing that, but I also don't like saying black people because I don't think black is just a color anymore when it's being said. There's so many other adjectives that people attach to when you're talking about a white man, black man, woman. Like nowadays, it's not just a color or a description to know what you look like. It has all of these adjectives attached to it, which is where he was talking about unconscious bias that we have about people, which I can say that I have biases against human beings, but they're all basically equal, dude. Like I like if I get a feeling of some sketchy shit, it doesn't like it's not the color of your skin that's calling that out.
Well,
I went to a school that was like all black.
Us three,
And
we have a little different take on sketchy people because we grew up in Philly. We
were sketchy people.
Yeah.
I
definitely will.
But like we know that it's not just color. Like we know a sketchy person.
It's a sketchy person. You're like, like you can see it, you can sense it, right?
We're crossing the street either way. If there's a sketchy person the other way, it doesn't matter what they look like, color wise.
Yeah.
It just we can sense it. I mean, we grew up with a lot of sketchy people around.
Right, and when you Council Rock boys come down to Philly, you just don't know what to do around there. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Live bait in Philly for sure.
But like so again, I'm not saying inequality doesn't exist, but like Ed, I don't like using personal experiences also to justify inequality overall, because
I mean,
sometimes what we do is we zone in on why it happened. And because society has made it a normal to say men get paid more than women, it's so much easier to just go right to that. Same thing when like somebody doesn't get a job over somebody else. I'm not even saying it's not true. All I'm saying is, how does that make you a better person? How does that make you progress in life if you immediately blame something you can't change? Well, you can change your gender now. You still can't change race unless you're Michael Jackson. But what I'm saying is, why is that healthy for people? Why is it healthy? It may be the case, man. You may have been getting paid more because you were a man, and she might be getting less because she's a woman. But at the end of the day, can she change the fact that she's a woman?
No.
I think
so. Like blaming things and taking it in of like, well, she can, by the way, just so you know. But taking that and holding it in and saying it's because I'm a woman just gives you almost no hope or faith that, like, it knocks you down, it keeps you down. Well, right. So like, what's that?
The point of this book wasn't so much to place blame on our situations, but to take a step back and try to say, what the F's going on in this country? What is the ladder's broken? Why is it broken? That's what I thought. It's not so much.
That's what I thought too, man. But what blew me away, this is what blew me away. He talked about poor and rich the whole time. Nothing else. Poor, rich. Boom, chapter about black people being oppressed. So to me, yeah, I was into it in the beginning because I'm all about personal responsibility, but I also acknowledge the fact that society and we have a role to play to keep order within a society, and that, you know, we can't just be all no rules, right? There needs to be some sort of stable order. But to go from inequality being a poor mentality, right? Because if you think about it, dude, he said it himself. He said, I didn't know I was poor till I was basically told I was poor, right? He didn't know when he was doing these other studies and these controlled cases where he put people in groups, and the only difference in the groups is what he told them. He told this group that they did better than average, and he told this group that they did worse than average, but they did exactly the same. They got the same amount of money. And then when he would ask them questions, the group that he told got less money and that they were below average answered questions as if they were below average, and the other group answered the questions as if they were above average. The only difference between the two things is what they were being told from the outside. So it's what they accepted from hearing from the outside. They accepted it as their reality and ran with it. All of his studies say that, all of them. And then he says, most people feel like we're above average. So like if you ask people, what are you doing? Like Eddie, you're in nursing, I'm in banking, Mike sells elevators. I mean, he's, definitely above average, I guess, because there's probably only fucking 2 of them. But
I work for the CIA, bro.
I know you do, dude. I know you do. And you're good at it. That's why I'm saying you're above average. But if we were to ask, how are you in relation to your peers in that same field? 90% of people say I'm above average, which is, how's that possible when there's a 50% somewhere and 90 of us are saying we're all above average? So until you're told you're not, you're going to feel that way. As soon as you're told you're not, you feel below average. In all his case studies, these are things that were represented. But he doesn't mention the fact of that. Like he does, right? So I get confused between where he was trying to say a solution was, because I don't think he gave one, like you said, Mike. I think he was really presenting a thing and letting people come up with it. But I just didn't like how he just specifically brought up black people. He didn't bring up anything else like the whole time. It was rich and poor, and then he got right into black people. And to be honest with you, man,
he bashed conspiracy theorists too.
he did. And religious people are conspiracy theorists. And like if you're into religion, then you're more likely to believe. And he said like New World Order, like you said, Mike. He brought up these specific things, which I don't like the word conspiracy theory. But think about that, dude. It's like, until somebody tells me about New World Order, I don't know what New World Order is. So you tell me, now it's my reality because I want to believe it, right? I need order in my chaotic world. And I feel like we all are doing that, right? We're all doing the why me, why me, why me, why this, why am I here? What's the point of life? Da, 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 da. And we search for it, and then we're told this, and we're like, that makes sense. I get that. And then we can just live that reality now. And we'll do that, and we'll live that person's reality and this guy's reality, and we'll just keep living it because it's easier, but knowing deep down inside something's off. I'm not living the best life I can live, right? Like I know I'm not. And why is it?
Man.
What's that?
Stuck in the matrix.
Seriously. And then, but once you start to see it, it's sad, and it does hurt me. It really does hurt me. Like because I go back and forth. I went back. There was a girl I worked with. She's going to be coming on, but we would go back and forth about white privilege and all this. And I went back and forth to agree, disagree, agree, disagree, agree, disagree. And I've just come to the point where it's like, why is that a thing? Like, what benefits does it give when you're telling somebody that can't change that aspect of them? It's a proclivity of their life. They can't change. And you're telling them that's the thing that's holding you back. So what the fuck do you do? What do you do at that point? Well, I see that guy making money and he's the same skin color as me. And look at him, he's rapping and selling coke. That's what I'm going to do. Because look at him, he's smiling, he's happy. But deep down, that drug dealer is not feeling the way he looks. That's all of front, right? Some of them might, but most of them feel just as bad. But the little kids are looking up to that. And you got all these music execs making sure they're placing these people in the spotlight, so that's who they look up to.
That's what I'm talking about with the system, man. Like
there's a lot to do with the system.
There's a clear system to keep people in buckets and not let them break out.
In a group ideology.
Yeah.
And keep you in your box, right? So that's why I say I can't fix that system. You can't fix that system. Us three can't fix that system. But you know what we can fix is what we do and how we talk to people. And I am not going to weaponize the suffering of a Black person to make money off a book. I'm not going to do that.
It's been the same system since the early 1900s. It's the same exact. They change things around every decade or so, reword it, but it's the same exact system.
Bro, it's the 1700s, man. The rich people stay rich, the poor people stay poor. It's always going to be like that. That's the way it is. That brings me into my question. Can I ask this question?
Yeah, I need Eddie. You go first. Yeah, I've been talking too much. I gotta slow down. I'm passionate about this shit.
Go ahead, Mike.
But
Let me do my question real quick. So I have a couple, but I'll do one that kind of goes along with what we're talking about. Do you think people's opinion towards aiding the poor, towards aiding minorities, and creating more opportunities for them would change if they somehow knew that the poor were getting a piece of the wealthiest assets, the wealthiest money, whatever, to change their circumstances, and not a piece of the middle classes? Because I think as a middle class person, you feel like you pay for everything. And then to help this poor class, they're going to take more from you. So do you think people would really have a problem with helping these poor people if they knew somehow it was coming from the wealthiest of the wealthy? Or do you think they'd be bitter and not want to bring the poor people up to the same middle class level and just have a giant middle class and no low minority class or whatever? I mean, it's a tough question.
I mean, I think if it was coming from the wealthiest of the wealthy, it's, for me personally, I don't give a shit. To help these people, I don't see anything wrong with that.
But
there's 100%. There's definitely going to be people that are going to be bitter.
Yeah. So he got into that. He's like a bunch of different surveys. He even showed how they polled some Republicans and Democrats and swapped their answers, and they didn't catch it. And really, it was related to questions like welfare and aiding the poor. And he showed that, I mean, people really, they say they want to help the poor, but they really don't. So do you think it's because that they're afraid that somehow it's going to come out of their pocket to help the poor, and they're going to have less, and the poor is going to take a piece of their pie instead of? So do you think it would be different if they knew somehow it was coming from like the Elon Musk of the world and the Jeff Bezos? Do you think that the middle class would care or be happy about that? Or do you think they want to keep the poor people poor?
I think they would care, only because that's where like the selfishness will come in. Like, why I'm not rich. Why can't I get a piece of that? Like, yeah, I'm not piss poor. Like I'm not sitting on lawn furniture in my house because I can't afford anything else. But I'm not making six figures a year. Like, I should get a piece of that pie too. I think people would 100% be pissed off, and why not me?
Yeah. So why are they getting the handout and not me?
Yeah. Even though like they're well off, they have furniture, they have food in their fridge, they have clothes on their back, they have more clothes than they could probably freaking use. They probably have clothes in their house that they haven't worn in 2 years, but that's not enough. I'm not making this much money, so I think I should get a piece of that pie too.
I agree with the that's not enough thing, right? Because it's never enough when you don't know what you want, right? That's the issue, man. Is like, we like to take the bottom fucking 10% of people, put them in a group. All right, so they're taking like the bottom 10% of Black people. They're saying the bottom 10% of Black people, and then comparing them to the top 10% white people. And that's the comparison that they make, saying white people are keeping you down. And that's really the statistics that they're using. The top 10% of this group and the bottom 10% of this group, vice versa, right? So when we do that, we're not looking at it as like Dude, I'm your neighbor, bro. I live next door to you, right? You have a better car than me. I have a better car. You're starting to compare yourself to your surroundings, and you're not paying attention to, like, I live next door to you. Why would I be doing this to you? I'm not doing this to you. So I think that white people that get pissed off about white privilege, like I didn't get pissed off, but it made me feel, it used to make me feel some type of way. But now I feel like it's just a weaponized word to keep everybody down, to keep white people down. And because most white people don't feel privileged because
They're not.
we're people are struggling, right? But I see that's where I battle with white privilege all the time. So I'm like, do I have it? I probably have gotten it at some point, but is it something I walk around with 24/7 and everybody's throwing fucking flowers as I walk? No, but I guarantee I went into a store one day, or I did, maybe a cop pulled me over once. Maybe I got something different than they would have did if it was another colored person. However,
I don't know. You're pretty profilable, man. I don't know if you're getting any privileges for being white.
yeah, I don't get much, dude, because I typically,
You're not wearing a suit and a tie and clean shaven.
no, I do, dude. I clean up. My beard looks good sometimes, dude. I clean up. I can clean up, bro. I used to wear a suit every day.
I
But
know, dude, I'm just saying.
but what no, I get it though. But where I'm trying to get at is, like, if I own a business and let's say I am racist, like, why would you want me to hire you? Like, why would you want to work for me to begin with? I'd rather you tell me, if I went to a job and it was a black dude and he's like, I hate white dudes, I'd be like, thanks for telling me, I'll leave. I don't want to work for you. No matter, like, I don't want somebody to force you to hire me because I'm going to be fucking miserable. I want to work somewhere where I am accepted and people like me for me. And if somebody can't get over past the view of somebody, that person's fucked up themselves.
Yeah,
And
but
I think that's the thing that we miss out on a lot.
I
It's
think
that.
what,
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, I think that the system they're talking about is broken, is that they're not even getting to the same interviews because they didn't have the right schooling or the right upbringing, or they didn't have a father. They didn't have the same routes to get
Right.
to the interview that somebody else.
There's so much more to it, right?
Yeah,
Like, I
it's
just
not-
don't like the stigma of it's just the color of you, because that's not going to help anybody. Because now he's not going to try to do a better resume next time. Now he's not going to try to figure out where he went wrong in an interview. And maybe it was perfect. Maybe the resume was perfect. Maybe the interview was perfect. Maybe everything was perfect. That person didn't like you because you were black. Well, guess what? If you look at it like that, you're going to go to the next one, the same human being you were the day before at the last job. Or you can say, no, this was my resume and now I was speaking. I'm going to work on that. Now you're 5 times better than you were yesterday at the last interview, even though you had a great interview before. But guess what? Your next one now is going to be a little better because you're focusing on things that you can change, that you can do, and you're not focusing on something that is so easy to just be like, that's why I didn't get it. All right. And just keep going through life like that. It's just not healthy. I think when you're constantly telling people, and he says it in the book, we compare ourselves to everybody. So if we're comparing ourselves to everybody, and then the people that we're looking up to, like teachers and anybody in the education system, especially at a young age, and like North Penn did the privilege walk, these kids look up to the teachers, dude. Like kids, for example, with Liam, if Liam asks me something and I say I don't know, we'll be like, what? You're an adult. How don't you know? Because they assume that we are. I think about when I was a kid, I thought my parents felt way different and were different. Like I don't know what it feels like to be an adult. I still feel like a child at heart, dude. I'm still learning every day. It may look like that to Liam because he doesn't know, but he's doing the same thing with his teachers. Like, you don't think your teachers are wrong, so you're just going with it. Next thing you know, you think you're more better off than that guy because of your skin color. So what do? You don't change because you're good. I'm good. I'm going to get the job. She just told me I'm going to get the job over them. And that's not how you do. That's not how you get people to progress in life.
But
And it's a
so
hard pill to swallow, and I might be completely wrong, dude. It may not work, but I know that those steps are better steps than blaming it on something about your human proclivity that you can't change. That's my opinion. Focus on things that you can change, that you can do better, and not things that you can't, as much as you can, I guess.
well,
Right?
essentially, yeah, to answer my question, on a psychological level, I think the middle class knows that they need to have what you're saying, what you guys are both kind of agreeing on is the middle class both kind of knows there needs to be a lower class and you don't want to be a part of that lower class. So if we keep them down, then we can stay middle class and we're not getting we're at least better than some. And we know that there's always going to be an upper class, an aristocracy, a bunch of rich people that we'll never be a part of. So we kind of get upset when people talk about welfare and things because we're not getting these handouts. We're working every day. And when you hear that the poor are getting aid, it's like, well, where the fuck's my aid? I mean, I'm not Rockefeller over here. Why don't I get any help? So it's kind of a psychological issue as well because I mean, nobody wants to be in the lowest of the low, the poor classes. So when they hear that there's help going out to them, it kind of you get a knee jerk reaction like, well, where's mine?
I can add to that too, man. Like thinking about it now that you're saying it, I remember like kind of when you're and I can't specifically think of a person or anything, but like when you're being constantly judged for getting free things like that, you see other people judging that human for getting free things. It's not necessarily that you don't want the free things or that you even want it.
Sure.
You just know how other people are perceiving somebody that gets free things. So you're like, I don't want to be perceived that way. So like if you're getting food stamps, you'll hide the card because you're like that person that I don't know that's standing behind me is going to be like that person that has food stamps. Where when you're in the a poorer community and everybody has it, you're like, give me a sandwich on it. And look at my food stamp card. Look at my access card. Right? Like it's not a thing, but nobody's looking at it like you're the scum of like you're this low life lazy thing, right? So he does talk about that too, where we view it as being lazy or XYZ based off what we our surroundings and where we grew up and how the people around us are judging these things. So when you're in a community that's looking up to a drug dealer and it's okay to take free assistance and there's nothing wrong with it, and then you go to the middle class where there is something wrong with taking handouts and you're looked down upon, it's like, do you like keep trying to progress through that? Do you have to leave? Because if you're poor and you leave, you have to leave everybody behind. Look at all the rappers that leave. They're like Meek Mill leaves Philadelphia. Dude, he ain't living in Philly no more, right? And everybody's like, you changed up. You changed up. Like no, like if he didn't change up, he'd be sitting with you right now, still smoking a blunt on the corner at 40 years old. You have to change. That mentality of don't change up, you're perfect. I'll never tell my kids they're perfect. I'll never tell them that because they're not. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. If you're perfect, you're stuck. Where do you go from perfect? Right? We're always telling our kids we're perfect. You're perfect. And then everyone's telling all the kids they're perfect. You're perfect. And it's like, my mom told me I'm perfect and that kid's perfect, but he's doing the opposite of me. So which one of us is perfect? Now you start self-conscious on yourself, like, I'm obviously not perfect. Right? And then it's like, are my parents lying to me? Are they this? I just think that like we lie because it's comfortable to other people. So if like Eleni, when I talk with Eleni about this, she says it and I just tell her how I really feel about it. Most people, if they disagree, would be like, yeah, that's right. And in their head, they're like talking to themselves, like, that's a cop out there. But if you can be honest with the way you feel and have a conversation, your perception starts to be more sympathetic to every opinion. And then you can understand other perspectives and just realize that we do all have different perspectives because we did not spend 24/7 attached at the shoulder and see the same things and stuff. So like, I'm not saying any of this is wrong, right, or indifferent. I'm just saying if you feel, if anybody, and this goes to myself, man, like if I ever blame something on something I can't change, I'm fucked. Even if that is the case. Even if it's the case.
All right, Eddie, you start talking. I feel like I think you and I dominated this whole conversation.
Yeah, so let me I want to ask a question. I think that in this book, he really gets into why inequality is bad. And I'm a believer that there's nothing that's really all bad. There's good that comes out of bad things. There's bad things that come out of good things. And if you don't give if you give something a definite good or bad, I think you're kind of putting yourself in a box when you do that. He doesn't bring up any positives about what inequality could do for people. Do you or either of you think there are positives that come out of inequality? Or is it all bad, kind of like how he represents it in the book?
Well, I mean, certainly inequality, I mean, really, it sharpens your character and makes stronger people. And if you can overcome inequality and wind up with the same resume as someone that didn't have to, you're going to be a better candidate for a job, or you're going to be stronger than someone who just was handed it to them. I mean, that's for sure. But it's kind of hard to say that inequality is good, but it definitely can build character.
What about you, Ed? Do you think?
I agree with like what Mike's saying. Like I feel like inequality kind of defines what what America is. Like there's always been inequality. I feel like if we had equality, it's kind of like everything's even across the board. You kind of, like Mike said earlier, you kind of start going into the territory of socialism and like communism, like, oh, everyone gets healthcare, everyone gets the same amount of money no matter what job you do. Like this is it. Like, so like I feel like there needs to be inequality, at least here in America, for it to be what it is.
And he says utopia dreams often turn into dystopia, and I really wholeheartedly believe that. I mean, the most utopia of societies wind up turning into Russia, where communists exploit people and they become billionaires while the poorest of the poor live in slums. So it's kind of, even if you have the best intentions with your utopia society in your head, it's going to be the strong are going to conquer the weak, and there's going to be there's going to be inequalities. I mean, that's just the way the mob works. People gang up on other people and put people down. I mean, until you get rid of that in human nature, it's kind of hard to grow as a society into the utopia that people have in their minds.
I just don't think equality exists.
I don't think so either. I mean,
right. So if you take a communist country, man, it sounds great. Everybody gets X. Everybody lives here. That's it. However, who's giving you the pay? Who's giving you the money? It's coming from somebody. Who's telling you the job that you're doing? Like, people have to tell you that you have to do these things. You ever read the book The Giver or watch the movie? You did? I watched the movie. Kristen read the book, and that's how we got to the movie. And it's very similar to like the other books that we were reading. It's like,
sure,
you're born and you're given a job, and now that's what you do, and that's it.
That's what happens in countries like Sweden. Like, they give you all these kinds of tests in high school, and then they determine if you're going to go to college or if you're going to be a worker. Like,
Yeah,
it sounds terrible. That's what already happens in places in the world.
so like the village where like my wife's like family's from in Greece, like that's like how it is. Like the baker's son becomes the baker, the butcher's son becomes the butcher, like, and like down the line, like that is what it is. Like that's how it is. Like they don't really leave the village.
Yeah, and I personally like that model.
On a
To be
small
honest.
scale, on a small scale, that is a good model. But
Right.
once you start getting into big cities and millions of people, it's kind
It's
of
impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get corporations involved that are owning all the other little corporations and blah, all that. But the reason I like that, Ed, is because like my kids go to school every day. I go to work every day. Daddy disappears to some foreign place every day. They don't know what I'm doing. And then they're in this school scared to death. And I have a great drawing I wish I could find of Liam, dude. His first day of school, they had him draw a picture of how he felt his first day. And it was a picture of him at a desk and mad scribbles everywhere. So like, that's a great,
That's
dude,
it's
awesome.
Deep.
It's so deep, but he probably had no clue. Like,
No.
you know what I mean? Like that's why art's so cool, because it's like a representation. If somebody else looked at that, they'd be like, what is this thing?
Right.
But like when you paint that picture of the whole how it was drawn, it's like, dang, he literally felt so alone in this world that he is so lost in. Whereas if I was a butcher,
kids.
what's that?
That's in a school with 1,000 kids.
Yeah, being
Like,
told
that's how alone he felt.
Yeah, and you have to be told this and this and this and this and this, and you're like, well, before I got here, I was doing that, and that. Now what is this? So anyway, if I was a butcher, my kid, Liam, at 7 years old, would be coming with me and learning how to do that, and watching me, cut up an animal, and watching me do these things, and learning from that, having something to kind of really look forward to, right? So like, that's a good thing too. Where inequality comes into play is that's not what he has to do. He gets to go through that chaotic school. He gets to be different. He gets to be Liam. And now he gets to take in a whole new experience and create somebody that's not his father, right? Like he gets to be somebody different than me. I don't know how good that is or bad or anything, but it's a benefit of inequality if you think that you should be able to do anything you want, right? Even when like women getting paid less, it's like inequality gives you, if that's what you want your purpose to be, inequality gives you a way to find meaning in figuring out how to get women more money than men. Without inequality, you don't have that. Like, I just think that sometimes we're looking at things from an all negative, and it's like, I just want to ask the biggest civil rights leaders, if racism stopped today, what would you do with your life? They wouldn't know, because they don't want it to end, because that is their purpose. Their purpose is to end the racism, not end it, but fight to end it. And they wouldn't know. So if you can't answer the question, what would you do if the thing that you're doing, same thing with me, if money disappeared and you don't need money anymore, and I'm in banking and I swear I just want to help people with financial wellness, and all of that disappears tomorrow, what the fuck am I going to do? Right? So do I really want overall financial wellness, or do I want people to struggle financially so I can help them?
I know what I'd do if this all went away and society went to shit. I'd be a farmer and chill in my land and never see anybody I didn't want to see ever again.
I'm with you, dude. I mean, I know what I would do now, but what I'm saying, I'm just trying to give it from a perspective that's not bringing in race.
I think you gave a great example in the beginning. Yeah, inequality exists because we want the strong firemen rescuing us from the building instead of the short, weaker housewife. I mean, that's what it is. Inequality exists because when it comes down to your life, you want the most capable person in that role. And just like the person in a company, he has grown up with people that look a certain way being successful. So subconsciously, he's hiring the younger versions of that to work for his company. And we need to break that thought if we want to change the world. I mean, it's people do what's comfortable, what they learned is the right way over time, and it's hard to break that. So for the past is the future. I mean, people have learned something, and how are you going to break that idea in this 50-year-old man's mind to hire the guy that's a different skin tone than what he's used to, or he could hire the.
Yeah, why do you want to? That's my big thing. Why? Why do you want to? Like, why? I don't.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't get it. I understand that these things were definitely needed when slavery stopped. It was probably very hard. I don't know. Because when you look at even that time, how I said we compare the bottom half to the top half, that's the same thing we do when we're looking at slaves too, is we're comparing the richest white men that own slaves to slave. Like there's so many other white people in there that
didn't have
just
slaves.
didn't have even access to slaves. And the only reason that they were racist wasn't because they didn't like black people. One, they never talked to them, so they wouldn't know anything about them. But two, it would be because if I'm a poor white man, I need to feel better about myself. So
Well, society
here we go. I can push them down to push me up. But you're not really pushing yourself up. You're just kind of pushing them down to keep your head above water. When you hate somebody because of something that they can't change, that's what you're doing. You're pushing them down so you can hold your head above water. You're not going anywhere. It'll never get you anywhere to hate somebody for those things ever.
The most ironic part was, what was he talking about? Thomas Jefferson didn't have a microwave and all this
Yes.
shit. But Thomas Jefferson had a chef, he had slaves, he had people wiping his ass for him. So no, he is not as well. He is better off than the average poor person today. So get that shit out of here. Monticello is way better than Port Richmond or any house with a microwave and a TV and heating. I mean, he had slaves building fires in one of his 50 chimneys in his house, or making his dinner on demand. He didn't need a microwave because he told someone to go heat up his shit. So yeah, it's not a good example.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. And I think that's where people also start doing that is like, where's your inequality? What are you comparing your equality to? Like, I think that's the first thing you should probably ask yourself. If you are being oppressed in a way that's making you unequal to the rest of the world, what is it that you need, or what would you need? What are the things that break it all the way down, figure it out. What do you need to consider yourself equal? Because most people you ask that question to can't give you an answer. They don't know what it is they need or what dollar amount they need. They don't really know. So
Nobody wants equality. Equality looks like shit. Equality is everybody lives in a small 800 square foot house with the 1/100th of a backyard and 1,000 houses in a row in a city that's all identical. I mean, if everybody lived equal with the amount of people on this earth, we'd be in high rises and a lot of trouble. So
yeah,
it's difficult to say what people actually want because they don't know themselves.
Yeah, and I picture equality as like all the middle class going down and everything turning into the poor class, not the other way around, not the poor class coming to the middle class. It's the middle class going to a poor class. So you're bringing all these people down. Now, nobody has a chance to escape, and you're all stuck because the 1% now doesn't have anybody that is still striving to beat them out. Right? Like they're still like, look at Elon Musk, for example, whether or not he's good or bad or indifferent, he's somebody that kind of wasn't up there and now he is. And it was kind of like, how'd he do that? Well, he did it because of inequality, and he did it because it was the opportunity, and he decided and he took it. He could have found, how many Elon Musks are out there that were doing very similar things, that are living in a cabin, like living on the street, laying on a sidewalk, that are just as smart or anything, but they didn't have one thing else that he did. Like he didn't push one thing further. Elon Musk isn't the only person that has that. He's the only person that has all of it, right? He's the only one that pushed that extra mark to get there.
Well, I mean, he grew up going to private schools. He had quite the
But was he part of like the elite, like as we know as billionaires? Was he?
He wasn't a billionaire. His family's a part of the aristocracy, though. Like there's mom.
Oh yeah, they are. See, I didn't know that. So see,
pretty
I
sure his
needed that
mom-
correction.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his mom was an actress. His dad was some rich guy. I forget, but
So I guess a better one maybe be somebody that's like on their way up, maybe a Joe Rogan or a Portnoy or like somebody that
Portnoy, I mean, I'm not a big fan, but he definitely came from, I wouldn't say nothing, but he's definitely not, he's a good example, definitely, of what
you know what I mean? Like people that,
built his own empire for sure.
right. And that's the people that the millionaires and billionaires that are together don't want to be able to reach that level. So they do things to keep that guy where he's at.
Well, that's a good example with Portnoy too, because some billionaire bought his company and he lets Portnoy doesn't own his company. He's the president, but
He sold it.
yeah, he's not the majority share. He hasn't been for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years.
See, man, that's the thing. That's how easily you can get sucked in, right? Like Joe Rogan, for example, owned his own shit, and then Spotify's like, yo,
They gave him $100 million. I mean, how do you turn that down?
right. And that's because of how do you turn it down? It's like, you're not going to censor me at all? No. But dude, you're talking about COVID, dude. You got to stop. You got to put dude, you said.
You're bashing transgenders. You got to change.
Dude, we need all these disclosures. It's like, how this happened? This isn't what you said.
And like the crazy thing is, like, they're like, oh, like he doesn't really have much. All from 100 million. We know he's going to take it.
Yeah.
Knowing in the back of their mind, they probably would have went to 3.
I think he did.
You know what I mean? Like they would have went to 3 million if they had to. Just to take over.
Do you think that it's almost like it's almost required that you do something like that? Because like we're on YouTube, but YouTube basically owns my podcast. Technically, they can get rid of it tomorrow after they watch this episode.
Sure.
So like it was almost like a security blanket in a way of, well, YouTube could pull us tomorrow for absolutely no reason. If we sign this deal, at least if they start to try to censor and stuff, we're already paid.
So Elon Musk's mom was a supermodel, is an entrepreneur. Let's see what his dad is. Electromechanical engineer, pilot, sailor, known for his scandalous life. So yeah,
I do know, and it was 2008. He almost went bankrupt. Like he almost lost it all, because he kind of split his funds into Tesla and like SpaceX. And luckily for him, they both excelled tremendously, because if they fucking failed, like he could have put all his money into one, let the other one fail, or vice versa, but he split it and somehow just hit the fucking jackpot. And
yeah, I was just bringing up that he isn't as quite the perfect example of.
No, I get what you're saying.
All right, what's your question, Ed? It's your turn.
So like the one we kind of talked about, so like the second one, so the one question I had was like kind of like, so in chapter 9 he mentions, he describes a cognitive behavioral exercise to help people live more comfortably in unequal environments. So like how do you feel about like what is the most like meaningful, like what is most meaningful to you, like for that unequal environment?
What means, say that one more time.
So people live more, to help people live more comfortably in unequal environments. So like we'll start there. So like how do you feel about like what would you do, or like to make people feel more comfortable in those unequal environments?
So for me, the first thing is not lie. Okay. So whether I'm right or wrong, I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to tell the truth. I should say, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to at least not lie. Right. Like I may be wrong. I may say things, but I'm going to say how I feel, because I think lying just doesn't get you anywhere. When you keep lying and lying and lying and lying and lying to yourself, now nothing's real and nothing Like you have to go all the way back through all those lies in order to get back to progression. So one, I wouldn't lie. Two, I mean, dude, when I started all this stuff, when I left the bank, the first thing I thought about was how do I create a nonprofit? How do I create something where I can give this stuff for free? Because in my opinion, dude, it's like, in order to, the people I want to help the most are those people, right? Like, but it's not, but I don't want to put them down. I don't want to sit there and market these people as being
Make money off of them. Yeah.
Yes. So my issue with Fervent Wealth when I started it, man, is the people that I wanted to help. How am I supposed to take their money? I couldn't justify taking payments from them and saying I'm out there to help, because I'm like, then how do I create a moral and justified dollar amount that they pay me that I'm also able to live off of?
Right.
Like where does that line get? Where is that? So for me, it's creating something where I can get to a point where I'm making money here in this category, and I'm broke as shit right now. So anybody thinks I have anything I'm so broke after this move, dude. I struggle every day. So, but I know that I could have been way more well off with the mask on in Philly, but I wasn't doing that. Anyway, I'm so broke right now, dude. So every day I work harder and harder and harder. I wake up earlier, earlier and earlier. I'm changing habits little by little. I'm not trying to make this overall change tomorrow. I'm doing little things to make me better than I was yesterday. And it's getting better every single day. But I know deep down, I know that at some point, dude, it could be 10 years from now, I'm going to be confident in everything I have to the point where all of that selfish behavior that I was doing the last 10 years, I'm now able to be selfless and start giving back to people and start doing that nonprofit. The nonprofit I wanted to open, dude, is like a whole wellness thing. I wanted a whole wellness thing. I wanted to implement where there was, the lunch was provided. It was sort of like a library where people can go and talk, where there was sports for kids, where just a bunch of different activities to bring a community together that might not have a church or somewhere to go now that they're comfortable. And in that aspect, have offering free financial coaching, like free, it's free. And just having those other things so that the community can get together to see that you're not alone and that the people that feel the way you feel look different than you. And then you can start to perceive a world differently. So for me, man, I think that just living out my truth and not lying and being selfish in the right moments and not just being selfless all the time, because that'll never get anywhere either. And then I give everywhere I can give right now. Like I still give. I don't have the same solutions as I used to when it comes to the financial world. But when I sit with somebody, dude, I'll spend 2 hours with them talking about something I can't even do for them so that they can go somewhere to do that. I didn't make no money or do anything there. So for me, brother, like that inequality to me is opportunity for not just me, because there's somebody above me too that I have to look up to learn from. Just like there's people below me that I can be a role model for. When I mean role model, I don't mean punch down and you look up. I mean, if you want to watch. If you want to learn. Take what you want, leave what you don't want. I'm not telling you this is it. This is it, because I still don't know if what I'm doing is right. But I promise I'm going to continue to try. Right?
Yeah, man. Like for me, it was like when I had that question, I felt like the biggest thing you could do is like, first off, like you got to kind of figure out, like, do they want to help themselves? Because like, I feel like handouts aren't going to really do anything. Like especially like someone like me, like if I don't want to help myself, like with like addiction. Like if I didn't want to help myself, like you can give me, oh, like here, I need get better. Here's some money, get off your feet. Like, yo, I'm blowing that money, blowing it. I don't like if you don't want it, then like there's no way like we can help. But like the biggest thing is like if you want to help yourself, then like instead of handing them something, like education, like educate these people. Like but like Bill, like educating them financially, how to better manage their money, how to teach them how to save,
That's a good one.
build up a savings account, but build up equity in properties or whatever, like teaching these people the steps to get out of the situation that they're in if they're not happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a system created with some government help where bankers can't exploit people of certain income gaps, and you can't give them a 20% APR for a credit card because I mean that's one of the traps. They'll be in debt forever. You give them, or if you give them a credit card, it comes with a certain amount of it could be for everyone, honestly. Your first credit card, you should have to go through some kind of class before you get that access to a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that. It's all education. I know people still might not care, but then they have this, you get them down, then they can't pay the bill. Then they have a terrible credit score that they can never recover from. And they're stuck in the ghetto because of that. So
That's why I think even like the education, like the school system is fucking
oh
broken.
yeah, for sure.
Like they're teaching you shit that like it doesn't matter. Like they're not teaching you life skills. They're like they took out like
everything important.
they took out everything important, like shop class or home economics. Like these people, you don't even know how to make a meal.
Right.
Like you don't know anything.
Now these people eat that cheap.
And like I seen this thing the other day. I wanted to actually talk to you two about it because it was extremely interesting and right up our alley. Is like they teach you about like the Declaration of Independence in school. They mention it, the year, who wrote it, people signed it, yada, but they never read it. They never tell you what it says word for word. Like I was thinking about it. I'm like, they never did read it.
Yeah, they don't.
And
really
then they don't teach you what it says. Like my wife said the same thing. She's like, they definitely didn't like what the school that she went to, too.
Mm-hmm.
And the reasoning like behind it is because like it pretty much like tells you to like take over. Yeah. Like it was.
Well, it tells you how courageous the men that wrote that were, because
smart people.
These were people that had full control and power and said, we know what happens when you take this.
Yeah. And like you fucking, and like it was saying like you
and gave it back.
Like if your government
Would
is
you
out
agree
of
with that?
line, that like you as the American people, like if your government is out of line or doing like corrupt things, like you have the right to.
Yeah.
But think about that.
They're the enemies.
Think about that for a
domestic
second.
enemies, foreign and domestic. They're domestic enemies. All of those people in government.
But think about that, because the people that wrote that were the government, and they said, well, if we ever try to take you over and then you need to stand up to us. It wasn't that you can't do it. It doesn't say anything that the government can do in there. It says everything that the government can't do. That's what it says. And they turned it, and it's now what the government can do and what the people can't do. And it's like, hold up a second. I don't think, and then, you can go back in time all you want and say, times have changed, times have changed, times have changed. Things have changed. We're still human and we have different things. But as far as our needs go, we've just been manipulated to believe our needs are any different than eating, procreating, and then fucking dying. Like, literally, that's what humans do. It's what we do. All this other crap, this computer, all this crap, doesn't come with us. It's going to be gone at some point, and you don't get it. So why not focus on this? Focus on the only thing that you know that you're going to die with.
That's why they put the pursuit of happiness in there instead of your guaranteed happiness.
I mean, yeah, you get to pursue it.
The whole lot, your life's a pursuit.
It's a pursuit. You get to experience it every now and then the more you start to learn about the people that wrote that. The people that wrote that probably weren't happy because they understood everything going on, and they got to experience it a lot less. I'll tell you that, because I feel like ever since I started to not be in a constant mind state of I don't want to say delusion, but like a constant reality of sports drinking and materialistic things, I definitely feel like I had this false sense of happiness way more often.
Oh,
I don't think it was real, because now when I get to experience it, it's like overwhelmingly amazing feeling that can't be really explained. But not all the time that I'm happy am I even smiling, though, right? Like,
yeah.
that's where I think we get all that. Like in school, Ed, like you were just saying, dude, in kindergarten, you get the faces, and it's like, what is this face? It's a smiley face. This is happy. This is sad. And it's like, all right, well, happy sounds good, so I'm gonna sit like this. It's like, that doesn't mean you're happy, man. Just like that face doesn't mean happy. It means smiling, right? Like we don't look at things like Mike loves his conspiracies and numbers, and I get into it all the time too. But like when I get there, I'm like, why? What is this going to do to benefit my life? But it's good to know. So I never drown myself in it as much as I can, because I did it with Trump. I do it with Biden sometimes when I watch him. I'm just like, it's not even Biden though. It's like, this is what it takes to be a leader. That
Half the time you think he's sleeping.
like,
He squints like this.
but it just makes me feel so like it really is when Trump wins and all the people cheer, and when Biden wins just because Trump lost and all these people cheer, and it's like, what are you cheering for? Like, why are you why are you so like, tell me, I want to know. I ask these people every time when Mike, when you were on social media, my big thing was, please tell me how your life changed with Trump in office. I ask myself that with Biden when I get upset. How did my life change? And I can actually physically see things that have changed with this new guy in office, which is why I lean the other way still. But I am not in any way, shape, or form giving them the power to control everything I do and think. I'm not going to do it. Right. So like when the federal government's telling me to put a mask on, it's like, now you're affecting me, not just me, everybody. When the federal government's saying you can't own a gun, well, now you're affecting me and everybody. When Trump's in office and people are on the news saying this guy's a racist, it's like, okay, I'm still walking around, and so is everybody else. Like, it didn't do anything to you. You let it. Your reaction has allowed it to do something to you.
That's the mind control, man. Mind control.
But that's what I'm saying. When you see
know,
it, dude, it's so fucking sad. It hurts because like the closest people to me are like there. Like even Phillies fan, dude. Like I remember going to a Phillies game, and there was a Mets fan taking a piss. And I kicked him in his back when he was pissing, and I was the man. I stood in the band, yeah, and everybody's cheering. And I was like, I'm the man. And now I look back like, what the fuck was wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, why did I do that? Fat Dan took a shit in the other away team, a Mets fan's fucking truck on the fucking driver's seat, dude. The dude tried to fight me. My cousin fought him, and then we left and got kicked out. And Dan's like, I got to shit. And we decided it'd be a great idea for him to pull the door handle on the truck. It was open, and he took a shit in the truck. Why? Because Dan thought that I thought it was funny, and you know what I mean? Like, it's like,
I know.
I'm not doing it because I want to do it. I want to do it because all of you want me to do it, and you're going to cheer. But deep down, it hurts me, dude. Like, I'm just getting hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt and more hurt. So there's no coming back.
I mean,
so I just think personally, saying that the ladder is broken, the only thing I like about it is there's still fucking steps. So yeah, the ladder might be broken, but it's broken for all of us. Might be unequally broken. But if you focus on the fucking ladder as the problem, you're never going to get up the ladder. If you look at yourself and say, how can I change myself to get the fuck up this thing? Maybe you'll get up. But if you look at it and you're like, that thing's broken, can't be used, I'm fucked. You're done. You're fucking done.
I think that's a good place to end. I think that's a good summary right there.
Yeah.
Right, Mike?
That's a good Philly summary there, bud. I mean,
Philly, I'm stepping up to the center with that all black Beretta, bro.
if you don't get some views after that, I don't know.
Let me put some lead in ya. You know that song, Mike?
Is that Meek Mill?
Is it Meek or I think it's Reed?
I think it is Reed.
Reed Dallas.
It's about 20 years ago, man. I've listened to that stuff in so long.
You were fucking old.
We are old.
We are old. All right, let me end this recording real quick, Mike. Thank you guys for joining. That was our book review. We have our next book, gentlemen. We have the author coming on. He was a trainer at one of them, TrueMark, where I worked. He was my trainer. Very well-spoken man. It's very easy read. I already bought the book. I have it. It's not a hard read. We can definitely get that thing done in a week after you get it. It's very small, bigger paragraphs. It's more of a motivational book. It's called, I believe, I don't have the book. I think it's called Fully Inflated by Michael Patterson. And what I think it's about is just basically how, if you're viewing your life as a basketball, how do you make the most out of, like, fill yourself up and get your bounce back in life? And what are the things that you can do? I haven't really read it yet, but that seems to be what the aspect is. So it's different than what we've been reading, all this sad shit. We thought we got a positive guy. Nice dude, always been a good guy. He is a good trainer. I've always really appreciated the way that he speaks to people, and some of the analogies, like fully inflated, comes up with those kind of things. What's that?
Is the book on Amazon?
It's on Amazon, yeah. Yeah. So I'll send you guys the link. I'll send you the link for it. And anybody, I'm going to put this in the beginning too. If you comment and share this video, give you a copy of the Broken Ladder. We'll send it out to you. Mike's going to pay for shipping and get it out to you. Or he'll drop it off the plane when you're driving across the country to sell his goddamn elevators. I thank y'all for listening, and we'll be back next week with another.